Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'm going to be dipping into the newly released anthology Cicadas. I wish I could tell you who put this out, but all I'm getting from the book itself is that this is a self-published thing by a bunch of people who were friends of a character named Riley Gale, because says Riley Gale presents Cicadas, and that's also what you get in the indicia. Then you get this really touching introduction here, who's saying this, which is saying that this project was started by Riley Gale, who I think the suggestion here is I think is a member of the band Power Trip, which I'm familiar with the name. I haven't listened to them, but I think they're kind of at the head of the thrash metal revival that's going on in the metal scene now. Not really my taste in metal, so I haven't listened to any of their stuff, but my sense is that Riley Gale was a member of that band and wanted to put this anthology together, and then was going to sell it while on tour with Power Trip at their merch table, hoping to expose people to the underground artists that he liked, and vice versa, expose those artists to his metalhead culture as well. So that's the context for this, but Riley died before he could finish this project. It seems like a tragic early death, and the friends who were involved in this, a lot of the artists came together, got all the artists that he was working with back together and a few others, and put this together as a tribute. So this is a collection of artists that Riley Gale was really excited about, and Riley Gale, you have great tastes. May you rest in peace, because there's a lot of really great artists in here. The only problem is all the artists are listed on the back, but not all of them signed their work, and there's no page numbers on here, and I think these are listed in order, but I'm not 100% sure. I think that's how it works out. So I think this is how the artists play out in the book, but I could be wrong. There's a number of them that I do know, so I'm pretty confident that, like, this first piece here is a Stathis Cymberlitis. Lando is also in here, the two artists from Decadence Comics. Really cool to see this. I think it's better produced than most of the Decadence stuff I've seen. Usually their line art doesn't produce very well. It's always pixelated looking, and here we're getting a better reproduction and some nice color work, which is exciting. I'm not sure who the second artist is. I guess this is Lane Milburn here, but a nice little 2-page psychedelic piece. Then we get a piece on S. Clay Wilson by Josh Baer that's pretty interesting, where he's just struggling with liking R. Crumb and S. Clay Wilson, even though the material has proven historically to be kind of a problematic material, which is interesting because I've seen so much hate thrown towards other cartoonists for much less than what you would get in, like, R. Crumb's work, and always wondered how he got a pass. But it's interesting to see that pass is maybe being taken away. People are reevaluating, or at least other cartoonists are starting to reevaluate S. Clay Wilson and Crumb and that era of comics where it's very, very drug-addled, misogynistic, rapey stuff that always made me uncomfortable, but used to be celebrated by people who would otherwise crap on that stuff. So that's kind of nice to see. This, I believe, is a Anya Davidson piece, kind of this weird orc love little thing. They're all, you can see why someone who had an interest in heavy metal and fantasy art would gather this collection of artists. This is Chris M. Wisson, an artist I'm not familiar with, but a science fiction story here. Just trying to give you a look at the artwork from each different artist, because this is a really good chunk of artists here. Now, this looks like the same artist, but it's not. There's two black and white space stories back and back together, so maybe it's Mark Bell or maybe it's Jason Tarpey who takes over. I'm not sure, but there's two very different space stories that almost run together because the art's pretty similar. Here's another artist I really enjoyed. I don't know what the name on this is because I can't follow the order, but really like this clean line style. Really like the desaturated coloring in here. The art was pretty cool. I just really wish they, like, if you're doing an anthology, like, just put your artist's name on the bottom with, like, a page number so that on any given page the reader can find it. It's like such a simple design thing to do to help the reader and help the artists. There's some of these artists I would be following up on and trying to buy more of their work, but I'm not exactly sure who they are. Then a manga inspired piece here with this really interesting spot color printing and the pink paper. Unfortunately, I don't think it's actually spot color, so you get some moire in the dot tones, because I believe you're not going to do spot color like this. You're not going to do spot color when the same story also has like this colored digital stuff in there. It just wouldn't be feasible. So it's all printed digitally, and in the half toning you get some moire patterns. This story really interested me, by Joseph P. Kelly, starting off with what reminds me of Jay Anceletto doing Aria, that old Image comic that was like the first time they were colorizing over rendered color pencil stuff. This has that same look to it, very like soft, mushy realism, very fantastical looking, but then jumps into this, like, again, kind of clean line style with some tones in there and some really nice desaturated colors, and then at the end of it goes back to that other style. Really found this story interesting as well, and the style play in there very fun. This is by Dill Chadwick. Really enjoy as this fight kind of levels up here, that there's this inclusion of a spot red in there to make the art more interesting. Some really good fun cartooning throughout there. Then a collaboration between J.B. Rowe and Aubrey Stitterson, kind of just like some big guys fighting the cops. Feels a little bit like Newsies or something like that. Stellar Leuna, really cool art here. Really like the compositions here, really like the balance of black and white. Pretty much all of the artists in here are hitting for me on some level or another. This Lael Westvind is an artist that I'm coming to like more and more and more. I feel like I'd seen some of Lael's stuff earlier, not gotten it, but after Flowform Specimen, which I thought was a really beautiful book, I kind of get it more now, I think. And just I think probably what turned me off to it is these are a little cluttered visually and hard to make your way through, but the psychedelic nature of that is starting to appeal to me more and more. So really interesting page compositions and beautiful coloring here in this Lael Westman piece. Then this is the other member of the Decadence Comics group, Lando. Again, really loved their thin, clean, kind of stuttery, broken Miyazaki-ish lines with the Moebius type of content vibe. Really lovely. Again, kind of a spot color on a toned paper. It is digitally printed, but I still feel like this is some of the best reproduction of this artist's work that I've seen, where those teeny tiny lines aren't visibly breaking into dots right before my eyes. So that's really nice. Really love their work, seeing it put together like this. And then the final piece here is by Josh Simmons, whose work I'm familiar with from, I think it's called Black River, and then the Batman knockoff stuff he does. As soon as I'm getting into a Josh Simmons piece, I'm like, oh god, this is going to be awful and horrible and grotesque. Amazing cartoonist. I just do not like how grotesque his stuff gets all the time. But I think this opening sequence in this story really shows what Josh can do when he's not leaning into the truly grotesque, but he's just dealing with the uncomfortable, having these people, this couple stuck on an airplane with this guy who's just a really unsavory, uncomfortable character, just being like really invasive into their life. I actually just experienced something similar with this similar discomfort, not to this level, but Tori and I had to go to an emergency room visit for her to get her hooked up to a hospital that we need her to be hooked up with for the long COVID stuff. And next to us, there's like all these rows of, just like curtains hanging between. And next to us, there was a guy who was either psychotic or hopped up on drugs or both, who was telling the doctor that he accidentally smoked meth while trying to smoke weed, and then was continuing to talk about the person who was there trying to hurt him, and that he had never done anything to anyone, so why did this guy want to hurt him? And the nurses were trying to verify where he was seeing this person. It was very uncomfortable to be sat next to someone who could easily level up into a dangerous situation We were both very wary for the couple hours that we were next to this fellow, not being able to do anything about it. Similarly, these characters are trapped on a plane next to this guy who's obviously unhinged and not being able to do anything about it. And then the story progresses from here into kind of the typical Josh Simmons, like, over the top gore fest, which again is not my thing, but I acknowledge that he's really, really good at it. But I really quite prefer this first part where, he's able to create all the discomfort without any of the need for the gore. Shows what he's really, really capable of. So this whole anthology, I think, was really, really, stunning from start to finish. Maybe the manga one's the only one that didn't really land for me, but even that's interesting because of the stylistic switches between the full color stuff and the two-tone stuff. So really, really interesting stuff. Riley Gale definitely had a great taste in comics, so it's too bad this person who was going to be doing a lot of work to help expose these awesome artists to people who wouldn't normally see them passed. But I'm really, really glad that his friends came together and put together this anthology. And I hope that this still gets sold. If his band's, found a new member and is still touring, I hope this gets sold on their tours, because this is a really great way to hook in a bunch of people who would be into comics who maybe aren't. I think there's a lot in here that would appeal to a lot of different kind of aesthetics, and people would be able to find at least a couple artists that resonated with them, even if they weren't comic fans, and maybe create some new comic fans. And hopefully there's more stuff like this. I think as a community we should be looking for projects like this that could be sold in different venues and create crossover. It's not all about trying to get the kids started reading Spider-Man and eventually level them up to this kind of stuff. I think it's really, really smart to realize that people just don't know what's out there, and there's a lot of potential audiences. And if you can find some link, like you're a musician but you're also selling these things at your shows, that's really, really smart. So really enjoyed this, really glad it got made, really, really bummed that Riley Gale, it will not be around to do more of this kind of stuff, to put together further collections and sell them at shows and things. But it really is a nice piece, and I'm glad it got made, and you should definitely check it out. Follow up on the artists in here. You'll find a lot of good stuff. Make sure to like, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell.